Long time no see. I wanted to return to this for quite some time, so we're going to be covering a lot of ground here. First and foremost, I want to thank you if you found this video, and I love hearing people's reactions as they experience the grand tale of Xeno for the first time. If you haven't checked out the previous video, we're going to be resuming where we left off, after having rescued Margie from Shao Kahn's clutches in Bledavik. The link to the previous video is below. Again, check that out, or else what comes next isn't going to make a whole lot of sense. Safely aboard the Yggdrasil, Margie explains why she fell into the hands of Shao Kahn. She explains that she tried to follow a rumor that the Sex sisters who were captured by Ob were still alive. Such a rumor, of course, would draw out the Holy Mother of Nisan. Bart gets frustrated with Margie, calling her stupid for falling for such an obvious ploy by Ob to kidnap her, which Margie fights back, obviously emotional over the fact that her mother and grandmother were killed by the Empire on Shao Kahn's orders. So of course something like this would inspire her to investigate. The conversation ends as Bart tries to cheer her up, saying that next time something like that happens, he'll go fight for her instead. Bart and Faye attempt to head to the bridge, but a small stuffed animal that Margie took from the castle stands in their way. Upon talking with Margie, it becomes clear that said stuffed animal is actually a real animal named Choo Choo, who appears on the scene and promptly confesses her love for Faye. If you played any of the Xenoblade games, you'll recognize Choo Choo as a sort of precursor to the series staple Nopon. Margie is then left alone with Faye, and she explains why she follows Bart. She tells Faye about the scars that line Bart's back from when they were originally caught by Shao Kahn. He shielded her from those beatings. It was then she dedicated herself to becoming his protector, but feels like lately the roles have been reversed, with him coming to her aid again and again. Faye is speechless to this, but he certainly has a lot to think about of his new comrade. With Choo Choo now out of the way, Bart heads to the bridge, where Sigurd expresses his concerns about Ramses. Citan is not on the Yggdrasil, but Sigurd heads off anyway to return Margie home. Citan somehow catches up by the time the Yggdrasil has almost reached Nisan, and he and Sigurd discuss Ramses, labeling him directly as the Holy Empire of Solaris' Special Foreign Affairs Agency. In other words, he is the commander-in-chief of the Gebler military force. Key takeaway here is that Sigurd, Citan, and Ramses used to be a part of their old military academy called Jugend. This is German for youth, so basically like the Youth Military Academy of Solaris. They ascended to the top of their class in ether ability and became what were known as elements. Elements are ether users who show divine ability in fighting prowess, and are typically paired in groups of 4, a leader followed by 3 members. Sigurd, Ramses, and Citan were all the followers to a mysterious leader as far as we know now. There's one point of notice where Sigurd and Citan, dubbed Hyuga by Sigurd, discusses the woman with indigo hair that we saw paired with Ramses, and it's clear that the two of them are familiar with her, as she was in the running to be one of the new elements. They seem shocked by her involvement by supporting Ramses. Moving forward, we land in Nisan, the holy land that hosts the cathedral where Margie was taken from inside Ob. As soon as the group docks, Margie rushes to the cathedral, where she is greeted by the relieved nuns, including Sister Agnes. She greets them and assures them that she isn't going to leave them again. I'm going to call doubt on that. Then asking to go up to her room, as her trip has been very long. They follow Margie and get a tour around the monastery. She shows the group where she and Bart would hide as kids to avoid scolding from some of the older nuns when they were younger. She laughs, thinking on the memories, and saying that he hasn't changed much since then. Now, I have to bring this up. It is clear that Margie admires Bart, as much she said so herself earlier, but some of you may have been feeling some romantic tension, at least from Margie's end toward Bart, who, if I must remind you, is her first cousin. So, yeah, this is a thing that happens. I can explain aspects of this to give context, as royal families tended to have interfamilial relationships, and relations often, but at the end of the day, a spade is a spade. A response on the subject from Fight for 3 on GameFAQs does go into the specifics of exactly how many of this familial bloodline has done this blossom dance together, as it were. This image here shows that Bart and Margie are first cousins. Bart's father and Margie's mother are brother and sister, but clearly Bart's mother was not part of the Nisan lineage. nor was Margie's father part of the royal family, so it certainly wasn't a case of King and Holy Mother always being married. That would require them to always be marrying their brother/sister. In the tree, we can only see 3 specific cases where the two families intermarry. Roni and Rin's parents, though that was technically before they were families, Rag and Bart the first and Sigrid, and then Bart and Margie. Though it's safe to assume that it happened many more times than that, we just don't see them due to skip parts of the tree. Intermarriages probably happened every 2 or 3 generations, where in each generation the king and the Holy Mother were either married or siblings, but I doubt they were ever both. And as DS Agent 7 said, intermarriage is common in royalty. When you have a social structure set up where royalty only marries royalty, eventually all royal families end up being related. Though really going back just a couple of centuries, and marriage between cousins among non-royalty was fairly common as well. Marriage to non-royals would still happen, usually into a high noble family, but more often than not, it was preferred to marry another royal to preserve royal blood and all that jazz. There is some more on this specific topic that make this aspect, I don't want to say less weird, because it'll still be weird, but I guess less specifically detrimental as compared to if this were taking place in our real world circumstances. I can't divulge more at this exact second, as it would involve talking at length about topics we haven't gotten to yet in the story, but I just wanted to address this head on, and yeah, Margie does have a crush on Bart. Anyway, the group heads to the second floor and overlooks from the balcony. There they see 2 statues of angels hanging suspended from the ceiling, each angel only having a single wing. In Nissan, there is a great legend that talks about how God could have created humans to be perfect, but then they would not have helped each other, as they could only fly if they cooperate. Satan then mentions that these 2 angels differ from most statues of angels, as typically they aren't meant to be gender-specific, yet these angels seem to depict a generally masculine and a generally feminine pair. He states it's intentional, that they are opposing forces, and that the space between them is the path where God advents. But then he quickly corrects himself to say it's possible that it's instead the path that leads to God. Margie is impressed with Satan's perception, calling him an amusing fellow. Faye merely muses that he rarely understands the thing that Satan says. The group then heads to the room that used to be occupied by the original Holy Mother of Nissan, named Sophia. Inside, the group notes the exquisite painting, which Satan notes looks very familiar. Faye agrees, noting it looks very similar to Ellie, but her hair color is off. Satan notes that the familiar aspect of it wasn't that it looked familiar to Ellie, at least to him. It was that it looked to be done in a style very similar to Faye's own, which causes Faye to turn inward, saying that he's nowhere near as good as this. One thing of note is that it looks as if the painting went unfinished, as the lower right-hand corner is not fully painted. The group then decides to head out. Maybe Sister Agnes will know more information on the subject. As they do, Faye feels lightheaded, and starts to see a vision of what it looks like himself painting that very portrait. A single name rings out in the back of his mind: Lacan. Back with Sister Agnes, she lets out the information that the painting was made 500 years ago, during the age of the first Holy Mother's tenure in the monastery. And she explains that there's no other evidence of her existence there, except the painting and word of mouth. She explains that Sophia is revered for having sacrificed herself for the sake of her people, and ended up returning to God. And that was the end of the information she has on Sophia. Back in town, Sidon and Sigurd finally tell Bart about their past in Solaris, the country behind the Gebler military force. According to them, Solaris exists in the sky, protected by dimensional distortion fields called gates. The country uses those from the surface land and denotes them as lambs, and they are used for manual labor and also to test various drugs. In particular, the performance-enhancing drive. Sidon and Sigurd had aligned themselves with Ramses at the time, hoping to change the system from the inside, before realizing that Ramses would not bring about the change that they wanted. This was during their time as elements from Ugend. Since they saw no further chance of their changes happening, they left and then headed to the surface. The party hatches a plan to recapture Ob in order to better stand up to Gebler. Bart will advance with the main unit to capture Shotgun at Bledavik, while a smaller team, including Faye, distracts the Av forces near the Kislev border to the east, and some Nissan forces will make it look as though Kislev is attacking Av from the west. The plan is to be carried out the next day. Each group says their goodbyes, and they prepare for their two-pronged defense. That night, Citan speaks with Maison on his responsibility at Bart's side, and Bart himself speaks with Sigurd as he prepares to be a kind of king his people would be proud of. Sigurd explains that during his stint in Solaris, he underwent mental reconditioning, and even though they brainwashed him, they weren't able to make him forget Margie and Bart, that he knew his deepest desire would be to return to his family, those he swore to protect. Meanwhile, back in Bledavik, we enter Ramses' room, and see Miang sleeping beside him. Ramses is dreaming of the red-haired man we saw before, as he decimates gears all around him without a second thought. Familiar tactics to Faye's own fighting style are evident with the red-headed man, and Ramses shoots awake, terrified from the nightmare. He then goes into another room to compose himself. Miang was awoken by Ramses' outburst as well, and when Ramses leaves the room, she tells a sneaking Graf that peeping is an untoward action. He appears before Miang. She tells him she was keeping an eye on that boy in the tournament for him, meaning Faye, of course. She mentions that he resembles Graf greatly, a fact Graf doesn't hang on to, instead claiming that Miang used her influence in the ministry to set herself up with Ramses, and that he knows what she's doing and warns her against playing against him. We now return to Bledavik as Ellie's been placed in command of the Gebler Special Forces. These are the 5 bozos who attacked Bart's lair before: Frank, Breuer, Stratsky, Helmholtz, and Vance. It's clear they don't respect her as a leader, but she's quick to put them in their place as their commander. They prepare to head out as Ellie prepares the special weapon she's been given as a trump card. Back on the Kislev side of the plan, Faye and a general assigned to his group named Maitreya travel through a nearby cave in their gears. Maitreya has Faye go on ahead to the peak of the mountains, but he helps them through the mountainous pass anyway. At the peak, Faye comes across the Gebler Special Forces unit. Faye has Maitreya and the other officers move ahead, as he stays behind in Veltal to take care of them. Ellie recognizes Veltal and calls out for Faye, but immediately the Gebler officers begin to swarm him. They break order and Faye has to battle them in several waves, finally ending in a fight against Ellie, who uses the secret weapon, Drive. What are you doing?
Don't worry, it's just the Drive. The Drive will readjust
I don't
your
want
balance
it.
to make you feel
I don't
good.
want to use it.
You think we're going to make an
Please,
exception because
go
your
away.
father's top brass? You have no recollection. There were no records on mental enhancement drug use up until now. Then it was sudden. She's probably the type that can't handle the Drive. That probably caused her to lapse into delirium. And her loss of self-control? You mean an unconscious burst of pent-up antipathy? But everyone has that. Is that why the innate ability is so high? Yes. What did Commander call those girls again? It's probably higher than they are. Then it's an instantaneous jump in the numerical value. But we can't use her as a test subject in front of Eric. It's a pity we can't manage it, since there's so much potential. We'll leave you to the Bureau. Stay at your residence until further notice. Don't worry, you have power worthy of the Chosen Ones. It's those weak people's fault for not being able to withstand your powers.
Please, stop it! Back in the present, Ellie injects herself with the Drive and begins fighting Faye, becoming vicious as he defends himself against her. He manages to hold her down after fighting. Silence! Impertinent fool! I will not listen to a lamb! That's not true. No, I don't want this. Are you okay? Ellie, what? Are the effects of the drug wearing off? Is that it? Is that what's happening? Shut up! I've no need for outward appearances of compassion. Faye, help. This isn't me. Hang in there, Ellie. Don't let go of your true self. No! No! Ellie. Ellie, why? I warned you. I said the next time we met we'd be enemies. But there's no reason for you to do this to yourself, just so you can fight. There's no reason for you and I to fight, none at all. There was no other choice. I'm a Solaris officer. I can't turn my back on my unit mission. Why did you have to use the drive? I didn't want to. When I use it, I change. I feel like I'm dominated by some unknown power that I never wanted. There's a power in me I don't want to admit. But I wanted to protect my allies, so I had no choice but to use the drive. Ellie, you're the same as me. The same? Probably. I felt I knew you ever since I first met you. Probably because our problems are so similar. I'm here for you. It may not be much, but at least I can relate to how you feel, Ellie. What? Are you saying that we lick each other's wounds? No, that's not... Well, I guess I am. Sorry. I'm sorry. I'm not being fair, am I? No, I'm just pessimistic sometimes. But even so, it's better than worrying about it by yourself. Hey. You won't change your mind? Please, don't look so sad. I have no choice. It's my only home. I have to go. My friends are waiting for me. If you can, get out of the army, Ellie. That look doesn't suit you at all. Now back to Bledavik. Bart's team regroups as they prepare to ambush Shotgun, but find they themselves are the subject of an ambush. Soldiers surround them, and it's revealed Miang is behind the ambush. She tells them that Ramses cut onto their plans long ago, and he set out to take care of the divided forces out by the Nissan border. Before leaving, she tasked Shotgun with handling them, before basically calling him a puppet to his face. As Miang leaves to regroup with Ramses, Maison is quick to appear on the scene with Titan's land crab mech, and is able to extricate them before Shotgun is able to do anything further. In the meantime, Faye's team takes care of the fleet near the Kislev border with little difficulty, until Groff shows up on the scene and gives the enemy commander Vanderkaum a power-up. This character will be interesting as we cover more Xenogears, as he is the start of a recurring character that ends up being a character we know of today as Vandam. So yeah, keep note of this guy. With this power, Vanderkaum becomes killing Faye's teammates, and Faye is overwhelmed as he sees this. They then shoot back to Bart's team as they attempt to escape Bledavik and the Yggdrasil, but they are intercepted by Ramses' fleet, which puts the Yggdrasil out of fighting condition. Ramses orders them to surrender. Bart decides to try to let everyone escape instead, so Ramses gives the order to resume the attack. However, as he does, a lone red gear with giant blue wings appears on the battlefield and starts causing havoc, heading straight toward the Yggdrasil. Ramses recognizes it from his nightmare and calls it the demon of Elru, and then rushes off. Quick note, Elru here is a place that we'll be kind of talking about more later. It is a mistranslation, similar to how Av and Bledavik are mistranslations of Hebrew months. The correct translation is Eloi. The red gear confronts Bart, but is interrupted by Ramses arriving in his own gear. Ramses is promptly defeated, and the red gear follows up by defeating Bart in his own gear. Before Bart is killed, though, Sigurd manages to crush the red gear under the Yggdrasil. However, the gear flies up holding the entire Yggdrasil above its head and effortlessly flings it at Bart. Sigurd secures and seals the ship's bridge before it sinks, and orders Sidon to take an escape pod. Sidon flies toward the Kislev border and observes the ruins of the battlefield. Sigmund, Kaiser of Kislev, is playing the organ in his chambers when he is notified of the clash at the border with Ob and the recovery of Veltal into Kislev. He rejects the idea of attacking Ob while their border forces are weakened. Afterwards, he meets with an unnamed group who arrives in a fishbowl-shaped airship, led by a masked woman who claims to be the representative of Graf. Sigmund is offered a device to pass through the barrier, and is asked to move Faye and Veltal to Nortun's D-Block, the prisoner section of the Kislev capital. Sigmund does not understand why, but he complies. Now, before we continue forward, Nortun is another English translation error that is very similar to the previous, as we just said. Instead of being Nortun, it is supposed to be Noatun, which is the domain in Norse mythology of Njordur. So, here, it is shown to be a prison cell block full of various criminals and other lowlives held within Kislev. Also quickly within Nortun, the song that plays here, titled Invasion on the Xenogears soundtrack, has always sounded like a sister song to the Wall Market theme from the Sector 7 slums from Final Fantasy VII, which, considering Xenogears' original identity as the prototype script for Final Fantasy VII, this is a pretty neat coincidence. I'll play both now. In a dream, Faye sees what appears to be his younger self watching a movie of him playing ball with his mother. Another younger version of himself, with his hair in his face, says that Faye should not be there, and the scene abruptly ends. Those of you who have played Xenoblade Chronicles 3 will find the scene very interesting. Faye awakens in D-Block with a bomb collar around his neck and is told by the nurse where he is. A bunch of thugs, whom the nurse calls battlers, pressure him into leaving the building to take the baptism ceremony. He is brought to Rico, a burly man with green skin and orange hair, Blanca from Street Fighter be damned, and taken the fight to the thugs and Rico in one-on-one battles. We get, as one might say, clobbered. Rico handily defeats Faye, and the latter falls unconscious again. As he awakes, Faye is introduced to Hammer, a supplier and demi-human who is half human, half rodent. Hammer's a bit quirky. He tends to end and begin his sentences by calling people bro and talk about his mad skills. But word from the block is that he's got a little bit of an inferiority complex, so he's resorted to some underhanded means to get ahead in Kislev. And Ryu Kohen, a representative of Kislev's battling committee, we're never going to see this character again. He invites Faye to become a battler, part of a recreational gear fighting sport that lays low under the law. I don't know how giant gear fights could hang low under the law, but there we are. Faye refuses because he doesn't like gears, to both Rue and Hammer's surprise. However, Sidon arrives in Norton's D-Block immediately afterwards, having been transferred in as the new doctor, and successfully convinces Faye to try and get out of Norton. Hammer says that people who win a battling tournament have their sentences pardoned, so he signs Faye up to be a battler. Meanwhile, elsewhere in parts unknown, we meet an organization dubbed the Gazel Ministry. We've heard this term thrown around before, but this is the first time that we're actually getting to see them. They are a set of alien-esque faces that are set on this rotating mechanical sphere.
Faster than we expected. The awakening of the Untouchable One. It has been 3 years since we heard any news. According to the Memory Cube, he is currently in Nortu. The Imperial capital of Kislev. Detestable, vexing, cursed. If only he did not exist, the lamps would not have been turned into the Animus. It has been 500 years since our fall in the days of destruction that he caused. We would not have to do this in such a troublesome manner as we do now. The excavation of the Anima relics in each area is proceeding as planned. It is too late to change things now, but in the future we will shape what will be. Although we do not know which route it flowed from, we are fortunate the Gatekeeper was activated. From the ethos, or... it doesn't matter, although... So you're saying we mustn't break Ignis's equilibrium? Well, the surface and the land is unclean. That is merely an excuse. It is a justifiable reason. Even Cain would not object. But we can't use the Geisha key. Not until the proper time comes. There is a third fleet in Lenevik. Their reserve units will do. Oh, his fleet. Your orders? To purge. Give no motives. If he knew our motives, it's obvious he would do something unpredictable. But wouldn't we need more men to raise the entire area of Nortune? There is an ancient reactor in Nortune. We'll use that. The half-life of it will be 1,000 years. Nothing will be able to live within 300 kelts of the explosion. However, they will live through that before. They won't perish that easily. But we must at least eliminate him. Yes, there is nothing we need from there, so be it. Take care of it. If it is a direct hit, well then, your orders are given.
Now, I know there's a lot of terms here we haven't heard before, being Animus, Anima Relic, Geisha Key, etc. So they're doing the Xenogears thing of talking about something important in front of your face, but not giving context as to what those things are for a long time, so we'll just store these terms away for a later time and purpose. However, we can get the gist that they're orchestrating the destruction of Nortune to eliminate the one dubbed the Untouchable, and it seems they've forged an uneasy alliance with someone named Cain, who even he would not object to their plan, as Nortune is not necessary and can handle a 1,000-year fallout if we were to confirm the eradication of the Untouchable. Now, we haven't gotten a rock-solid confirmation of this yet, but I'll reward your patience by confirming that the Emperor that we saw in the flashback not too long ago, the one that Satan had been speaking with and talking about at the time of the Gospel, this here is Cain, the Emperor of Solaris. But we're going to await more information before we dive further in on that thread. Before we continue on with the battling tournament, there's one thing I do want to mention. In the Nortune civil block, Faye has the freedom to explore around and speak to the civilians. I've largely not gone into detail as if their dialogue doesn't pertain too largely about the larger overall story, and I want to leave things like this for you if you want to play the game yourself. There is, however, one interesting NPC we can run into here. It's Big Joe! Bada bing, bada boom, welcome him here to you! The big lug has come back into the spotlight, and he offers Faye to see something interesting if you pay him 5,000 gold. When you do, he runs away, making off with your money. Aw, what a big lunk. He cared about us so much, he decided he needed to go grab that interesting thing right away as we gave him our money, because obviously he forgot it when he was so excited to see our faces again. Oh, what a softie. Faye attends the first round in the battling tournament. To his surprise, he is set to fight using Veltal. He does well until Veltal suddenly suffers a malfunction and explodes. Once again, Faye is left unconscious in the hospital bed. That night in the Kislev sewers, several of Rico's battle ongoings, one of whom was Faye's first opponent, discusses how they tampered with Veltal, although it's clear that Rico himself would disapprove if he had known. Suddenly, the battlers are murdered off-screen by an unknown enemy. A day later, Faye wakes up, and it's not long before he continues fighting in the tournament where he left off. His competitors for the first round, the battlers in the sewers, had to drop out. This time, Faye is successful and advances to the next round. Over the next few days, Faye makes it to the semifinals. The finalists must fight Rico, the current battling champ. Before the semifinals, though, Rico tells Faye that his subordinates were the ones that tampered with Veltal, and now they were dead, having been killed in the sewers. Rumors apparently have spread that Faye was responsible for their murders out of revenge, but other rumors say that a red-colored monster in the sewers had done it. Faye, Citan, and Rico decide to head into the sewers to investigate. So, before we continue on, I have a few points I want to talk about. First and foremost is Rico, our next party member. He's a grappler type of fighter who has a lot of power but not a lot of speed. He's also equipped with his gear, Steer. Now, next, the Nortune sewers. I have to say, I'm a big Xenogears stan, as any could be. But these sewers? These suck. I despise these sewers with every fiber of my being. They're a large maze dungeon with a lot of annoying encounters, and you don't have a map or even a mini-map, and you're just endlessly wandering until you can find the right way, and eventually come across the monster. This is very annoying, and is probably some of my least favorite dungeon design in an RPG of this time. I understand it's an RPG of this time, but this is the part of the game that I dread playing through each time I go through it. And speaking of, the trio eventually come across a particularly strong red monster dubbed Red Rum, and kill it. Rico's arm is injured in this fight, but he refuses to let Citan treat it. Red Rum as a name is a neat reference to Stephen King's The Shining, as when reversed, is a Moida. At night, Citan communicates again with Emperor Cain.
Has he awoken?
Yes, twice. No, 3 times to be exact. May I ask you this? Why would he be moved to a place like this? Was it the Elders?
Nay, they're hoping for a more immediate disposal. I don't blame them. They have a deeply etched fear of him.
Then,
Yes, probably.
it would be hasty to dispose of him now. I do not think it is too late to wait until we find out his purpose.
If that is your judgment, then so be it.
Your will is my will, Your Majesty. Well then, allow me to...
Wait a moment. I see.
Yes?
Their judgment has been handed down.
What is it then?
A purge.
Meanwhile, Ellie and the Gedler Special Forces are assigned to the mission and briefed on their job to protect a ship named the Hecht, although they are not told the objective of the mission. They suspect it might be to purge Norton, and Ellie has reservations, but decides to go along with the mission anyway. Faye makes it through the semifinals and decides to tune up Veltal with Citan and Hammer, while complaining that Veltal's parts don't match up to those of Rico's gear. Just then, we get a surprise visit from Wiseman, who appears and defeats Faye in hand-to-hand combat, using Faye's own moves before claiming that Faye will never win by fighting brute strength with brute strength. After Faye asks Wiseman to explain himself, Wiseman explains how he was the one that brought Faye to Lahan, and that he trained with Khan Wong, Faye's father. Upon learning that Faye lost his memory, Wiseman further elaborates that Khan was from a floating country called Shabbat, that Faye was taken by Graf when he was young, and that Khan pursued Graf after rescuing Faye. Wiseman then teleports away, leaving Faye pensive and Hammer flabbergasted. Faye defeats Rico the next day, and Rico is gracious in defeat, announcing to Faye is the new battle champ. Meanwhile, back on the Hecht, one of the current elements of Kebler, Dominia, announces that she's the leader of the Purge mission and explains its objective to Ellie. Ellie is not a fan, but Dominia has no patience for the Land Dwellers, despite originally having been one herself. After Faye and Hammer have their bomb collars taken off, they're introduced to Rico's old room, the room of the battling champ. And I have to say, this whole key stuff section reminds me a lot of the Glitzville section from Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door. I'm now making it a personal mission to reference The Thousand Year Door in every single video I go moving forward, just because that game is so good. Anyway, Faye is told that Rico's gear went out of control in a subsequent match, and he crashes into the Kaiser's box seat in an attempt to kill him. The three plan to leave Norton, but determine that they must get back Veltal first. Faye is then summoned by Kaiser Sigmund. While Sigmund asks Faye to join forces, Rico falls into the room out of the air ducts, and, upon security being called, runs to the Kaiser's wife's room, where the door opens for him. In there, Rico has a flashback of his childhood, him being told that he's a demi-human, and his mother growing sick and dying. Rico is arrested by security, and Sigmund is confused as to how he got into the room, which only opened with his wife's DNA. I'm sure we can make the connection here that Rico is the Kaiser's son. After the meeting, Hammer lets Faye know that Veltal is being held beneath the battling arena. Rico's subordinates meet with Faye and tell him that Rico is to be publicly executed in the battling arena that night, and beg Faye to help him. Faye plans to get Veltal and escape via the battling arena, rescuing Rico along the way. When evening falls, Faye and Citan break into the gear dock, and Faye successfully finds Veltal just in time to save Rico from a Rancor dragon. Rico, to Faye's surprise, has no intention of leaving Nortune, however. Their argument is interrupted by the arrival of Gebler above Nortune on their purge mission. Citan realizes that they plan to bomb Nortune's nuclear reactor to cause a citywide explosion. Faye plans to try and change their course while Citan helps while evacuating civilians. Faye fights his way through the Gebler Special Forces again, and after a moment of indecision, Rico joins him midway through. Ellie! Rico, sorry, but you go on ahead. What? You've come this far, now you're scared? I'll catch up, I promise. Please. Well, even without you, I can make do by myself. I guess I'll go on ahead. You're kidding. What are you doing here, Ellie? I thought you agreed to get out of the military. It's asking far too much. I'm an officer of the Gebler forces. Then, you're saying this is also one of your duties? Yes, my duty is to escort the Hecht, and to eliminate all enemies that get in its way. So you better get out of the way, because if you don't move, then I'll have no choice but to eliminate you. Are you serious? You do know what you're doing, don't you? How can you say that knowing where the ship is headed, and what the outcome might be? Come on, Ellie, say something! I know! I do understand what I'm doing. Then, change. How I wanted to change. I've thought of changing, but I couldn't. I don't have the freedom like you do. Freedom? Me? Yes! Am I wrong? To be able to choose where you belong? To be able to fight alongside those who believe in their own cause? Even if you have much more anguish to deal with, at least you have the freedom to choose your own path, unlike me. Then why don't you do that too, Ellie? If I could, I would already be doing it. But I can't. This is my place. And that's how it is here. So please, understand. Ellie. I don't have a place to belong to either. Bart and his crew, even their whole ship are all missing. They disappeared after the battle with Gebler. So I don't have a place to belong to anymore. Really? Then why are you fighting now? Who are you fighting for? Do you enjoy this? Barging into someone else's country and destroying the place? Dragging innocent people into becoming victims? You enjoy fighting that much? Is it that much fun for you to watch people die? Don't be ridiculous. I would never find pleasure with that. If that's the case, come with me. Let's go. Ouch. What? Just come. Look at this town. Take a good look. This is what you've done. Does the word duty justify all of this? Does it, Ellie? But that's all that was left. You're still saying that? It's just not like you. If you don't want to, then don't do it. You shouldn't have to force it just to have a place to belong to. What was I fighting for you just now? You wanted to know? I don't really know. I know I was helping Bart and the others, but I still don't know what I should do. Maybe I'm just looking for a place to fit in. But I think it's better to fight than to do nothing. If fighting you or your friends or even a little bit, it's worthwhile. That's not nothing. It's something. Faye. I'm going. No, you can't. Dominia is not like the other soldiers. She's an elite within the Gebler elite. She's one of Ramses' personal guard. You won't stand a chance. Still, I have to stop this. Hey. Sidon and Hammer have nothing to do with Kislev, but they're trying desperately to get civilians to safety. Even Rico, who must hate this town, still stays with me. That's why I have to go. Faye returns to the skies to fight Dominia aboard the Hex, a massive airship that itself is a bomb heading toward the Norton reactor. After defeating her, Faye and Rico try to redirect the Hex trajectory away from the reactor. Ellie joins them, having had a change of heart, and the three redirect it toward the residential district. They continue to try to change its course, but Faye and Rico need to stop due to their gears overheating. Ellie continues on her own, and successfully redirects the Hex fully away, but her gear runs out of energy in the process, and she falls with the ship. A winged black gear appears above Norton, and protects Ellie's gear from the Hex explosion with its wings. We've seen this gear before, elsewhere. It uses a massive amount of power to intercept and prevent her death. The next day, Faye, Sidon, and Ellie plan their escape of Norton. Hammer notifies them of an airship called the Goliath they can use to escape, and the party heads to the hangar where it's being stored. Now, before we do so, if we return to where Big Joe was when we gave him the 5,000 gold, we can find the M disc. We'll keep this in mind if we come across anything that can use it. On their way out, Rico joins them, having changed his mind about staying in Kislev. The party then reaches the Goliath. Using it, they fly out of Kislev and away over Aquavi, an island archipelago in the southwest of Ignis. Graf encounters them in his gear, and Faye, Ellie, and Rico attempt to fight him off. As Graf reapproaches, Hammer, to his delight, shoots him out of the sky with the Goliath's guns. One note is, during this battle, Graf is only going to target Faye and Rico. He will not target Ellie. Later, Bart observes the Goliath from the sea in his new ship, the Yggdrasil II. He happily shoots it down, not knowing who is inside. Faye, Ellie, and Rico, with Hammer, successfully bail out. Sidon guides the plane down to land on the sea, clipping the Yggdrasil in the process. Ramses is notified of the crash of the Goliath. Mid-deliberation, Graf teleports into his room, and notifies him that Faye was on the Goliath and is heading for Aquavi. Ramses immediately changes plans to attack Faye. Shortly thereafter, Ramses speaks with Miang in private. He reminds her not to interfere, while she says she's only trying to help, and that Faye is the very meaning of Ramses' existence. And now, back to the Gazel Ministry, just in case you wanted more terms to hold on to that'll be important later, because boy oh boy do I have some more for you.
Disobedience. Ramses' orders are to excavate the animal relics in Ignis, and to watch over the lands. What is he? We could recover the animal relics anytime. Moreover, we learned that he was on the transfer ship. Ramses was probably after him. So, it was the trauma. Nay, in this case, neglect. It was the severe external wounds. According to the memory cube, we found multiple subjects around him that possess the animus factor. Is it Sufrati, the subject of the M project? Yes. Coincidence? Nay, it is beyond that. They were either attracted to him, or unexpectedly, it's developing into the same condition as 500 years ago. That does not rule out the possibility you planned it this way intentionally. The transfer point is Aquavi. It's near the Thames. If it is Aquavi, Krellion's headed that way. Krellion himself? What for? It seems they found it. For over 4,000 years, he searched for Zebeline's legacy. Legacy? Is that the technology he was talking about? Yes. Molecular engineering, nanotechnology, the land of all creation, the capital of Zeppelin culture, resting beneath the ocean of Aquavi. For 19 years, the ethos kept it secret. Is this acceptable, Kane? Yes, it will do for now. 19 years, the coincidence with the time when the Earth shifted. Indeed, but I don't understand. That technology doesn't seem that crucial to us. He is still a lab. Giving him the ability to do as he wishes is questionable. There are times when even we do not know what he is thinking. Let it be. I will take the responsibility for that. On another matter, weren't you all going to eliminate it? It can't just be chance. It is provocation in Ignis. Anyway, I never believed it would be eliminated so easily. The Purge was a failure. This should never happen again. If the Animus are together, it is all the more reason. Yes. Kane, why are you so concerned about it? To us, he is insignificant. It can only be a poison to us. It could never be a remedy, a novelty. You don't still believe that, do you? That is merely an illusion, not even an ideal. Is it the emotion you have long forgotten? Kane, we are gods.
Okay, so there's a lot here. First and foremost, Sufrati is not a term you'll find by Googling easily, but we'll talk more about this later of exactly how I know this. But this here they're speaking of is about Rico, with the he that they mention up there is Fae. We've got more word on animal relics and the Animus again. The Animus, as Ben Showing said, is the group that Fae is gathering around him. The Gazel are saying that things are lining up to how they were 500 years ago, with people who have this Animus factor are coming together. And with the animal relics, we've been hearing kind of more of them. They are things that Ramses is supposed to be searching for, and the Gazel Ministry have a vested interest in, but exactly what they are, we'll be explaining that later. And the last turn that the Gazel brings up, though, and Nautilby, is actually another mistranslation. It is meant to be Anenerby, a German word meaning ancestral history. So the Gazel are asking Kane if he still believes in the ancestral history, which relates back to the supposed events of 500 years ago becoming relevant once more. Back with Faye and Ellie, they find themselves on a small raft with a few days' worth of food. Their gears are secure, but inaccessible below the raft. Faye feels that the others are okay and goes out to catch some fish. Meanwhile, Citan, Rico, and Hammer awaken back up on the Yggdrasil too. They go and speak with Bart, who half-heartedly apologizes for shooting down their ship. Rico is unimpressed and attacks Bart. Back on the raft, after Faye catches a fish, Ellie notices and points out Shavat flying overhead, and Faye recognizes it from the Dazel Desert all the way back when we started our journey. If you remember, Shavat is where Faye's father originally came from. Bart, meanwhile, goes and apologizes properly to Citan, who admonishes him for jumping the gun, and notifies Bart that the crest on the new Yggdrasil is that actually of Shavat, and to Rico, who he has gotten the anger out of his system already. Rico agrees to fully join Bart's crew. Back down in the driftwood with Faye and Ellie, we see a cute scene. On the next day, their piece of driftwood comes across a giant ship, almost a city itself in its size. This is the Thames, which, like location names we've come across so far, is a mistranslation of the Hebrew month Tammuz. Here we meet the captain, who is a man of the sea! And he takes on our two stragglers and their gears, helping them aboard. The captain helps them to some food and explains the entire city is floating on the water, and they're patrolling the aquavit as salvagers for the ethos, as they rely on the ethos buying their finds to stay afloat. Literally. We quickly change perspective to a submarine under the sea. Dominia, the earth element, we saw her a bit before, but she's also joined by Kelvina, the water element. They've got the Yggdrasil in their sights, and Dominia is eager to shoot it down to take revenge against Ellie, which Kelvina disagrees with. She says they're only here for the recon of the Thames, but Dominia chooses to act on her emotion and starts fighting with the Yggdrasil. The fighting is noticed by the captain, and by proxy, Faye and Ellie. The two get in their gears, which have been repaired by the technicians aboard the Thames, and they go out to assist Bart and the rest of their friends against the onslaught. Dominia calls Ellie a traitor, and Ellie says if they're going to continue on their path, she'll stop them. The group fight until Dominia and Kelvina decide to take their leave, but not before their gears overpower Ellie's gear, Vierge, and escape with her. The group is reunited, but unfortunately they are -1 Ellie, so they decide to return to the Thames while the Yggdrasil too is repaired. Their plan of action is to work on returning to Av to finally oust Shakan from his cozy spot on the throne, as they gather more information on how to stop Gebler and rescue Ellie. Upon meeting with everyone, we also realize that Margie has come along, and lets slip that Bart was the one that shot the Goliath out of the sky. Oops! Faye reveals he's not mad about that. It was understandable given the context, but it's losing Ellie that is some angry beyond comprehension. We shift then over to Dominia, Kelvina, and Ellie back on the main Gebler ship. Dominia slaps Ellie in the transport hallway, causing her to fall to the ground. Dominia summons her sword and is about to torture her more, but she's stopped by a voice, revealing Miang. Dominia says that she's a traitor and deserves it, but Miang disagrees, saying no such acts will be allowed on the ship so long as Ramses is in control. And she reveals she's aware of the battle records and knows Dominia instigated the fight. That she disobeyed direct orders from Kelvina to start the fight. She explains Dominia is to not prosecute any soldiers for treason without proper authority being present, and then claims Dominia's attitude toward Ellie isn't out of duty, but out of personal prejudice. She strips Dominia of her command over the lieutenant, and then shoos her away. Yang dismisses them both, scaring Dominia with a glow in her eyes, and then takes Ellie away to a separate room. She has Ellie sit down and to recover from her battle fatigue before commenting on Ellie's own eyes, comparing them to the crystalline surface of a lake. She leaves, confusing Ellie, and then returns to Ramses. Miang hands off the report, and after he questions her on what she did to Dominia, she replies that she had to install order, as it's her duty to be hated. Ramses seems satisfied enough with the answer, and she tells him that the information in the report suggests it is at the Thames, or in the ocean nearby. She suggests a plan to disable the Yggdrasil's submersible function, as if they were to give pursuit, they would not be able to if they headed underwater. Ramses trusts Miang's plan, and they make arrangements to set out. Back on the Yggdrasil, Faye finds Bart drinking with the captain, who is regaling him of his stories as a man of the sea. Interestingly, we find that Ellie has returned to the group, which is suspicious, but the group isn't necessarily complaining. Faye confronts Bart, who thinks she may be suspicious of Ellie herself. And he says that he isn't. He doesn't think that she's going to backstab them, but worries about her family back home. By being here, she would have to revoke all that she knows and anybody that might care about her. They'll agree that she needs some rest for the moment. They then immediately find Ellie tampering with the generator cylinders on the ship's terminal before passing out. They are able to stop the situation, and Seitan is quick to explain that it seems like there was some strong hypnotism in order to brainwash her into performing this act, and her passing out was her willpower fighting back until it was too much for her to handle. He says he suspected as much, and he began to tail her, although he admits to acting too late in helping her. But he has explained that if you interrupted someone in this state, the person who would imprint their will over someone like this would instill a failsafe in order to destroy the mind of whoever it was to avoid questioning until they were able to accomplish their purpose. Citan suggests taking her to the medical room, but is thankful to say that there doesn't seem to be any mental scars. Ellie awakens, and they begin to explain the situation to her, but are interrupted by danger signals on the radar. A gear is quickly approaching them. They vow to not have the Thames become a battlefield, so they quickly set out to fight them, with Ellie offering to come and help. Bart is wary of this given the whole hypnotism event that just went on, but Citan vouches for her, saying if anything is off, he'll shoot her down himself. Ellie is confident in wanting to help, and seeing as their time to react is quickly shortening, he agrees and they head out to meet Dominia in her gear, Blade Gash. They begin fighting and manage to fend back Dominia. But before they can celebrate too soon, a shot narrowly misses the Yggdrasil from below the surface of the waves. Going to investigate, they find Ramses in the submarine gear, Haishao, and Miang in her own gear. Ramses begins fighting with Faye, calling him his arch-rival, and taunting them where his other gear is. Faye is understandably confused, but Ramses manages to get the upper hand on Faye, causing him to topple over. The cockpit of Veltal is breached, and water begins flooding in. Ellie begins to fight Ramses in turn, using her air rods to fire on him. I didn't mention it during the last time Faye and Ellie fought before Nortune, but her gear Virge has these autonomous robots that are synced with her gear called air rods. If you play Final Fantasy XIV, these are the machines you control as the Sage class. They're cool. The air rods overwhelm Ramses and force him and Miang to retreat. Rico, Bart, and Ellie bring Veltal back up to the surface. Faye is alive, but he needs to be placed on life support in the Thames medical office. The doctor explains that Faye's condition is uncertain, but if they could bring him to the hospital at the Ethos' headquarters, they might be able to save him. The only issue is that in order to access the wing of the Ethos, one would need to either be a monk with the Ethos, or be introduced by someone in the faith. But this reminds the doctors that the Atoners of the Sin, as he describes, are heading to the Thames soon as they have some sort of investigation of their own to perform. The Etones are religious people for whom the Ethos clean away the Reapers, or the Vels, that appear in the Aquavit. This doesn't sound pleasant, but it takes a certain kind of man to take care of a certain kind of problem. Citan says that Bart, Ellie, and Rico should go see if the Etone can assist them, and he'll keep watch over Faye. On their search for the Etone, they come across some ruffians who are trying to participate in the normal act of human trafficking. Just as the group is about to get involved, a shot rings out. Upon seeing the shooter, the bandits skedaddle, as the man is introduced as Josiah. He immediately aims his gun at Ellie's head, calling her a dog of Solaris. Citan, upon hearing the shot, comes out and halts the conflict, saying that they were only trying to help the girl. Josiah lowers his gun upon seeing Citan, similarly calling him Hyuga, and then explains that the girl is his daughter, Primera. She's mute after the death of her mother, something Josiah, now introducing himself as Jesse to the group, regrets dearly. He also explains Primera isn't his only child, as the other one is 16 now. Speaking of the devil, said son comes on the scene and is revealed to be the Etone you're looking to speak with. This is Billy Black. It is clear from their first meeting that Billy's relationship with his father is strained, and he is only keeping it up for the sake of his sister. As a thanks for helping Primera out, Billy agrees to help them get help for Faye. There's also a cute moment where Maruki expresses interest in Billy's teachings in the Ethos, as she only knows the teachings of Nissan. Billy expresses similar interest and wishes to talk later about their faith. I know church bad is a common enough JRPG trope, and we've had some evidence that the Ethos is up to no good by playing both sides of the war, but I like Billy quite a bit, as he's a theist who symbolizes the positive traits of faith, and applying that to your personal life. And I like the dynamic he has here with Margie. The group separates. Jesse leaves Primera with Billy, and the group heads back to Yggdrasil too, as soon as they hear word that Sigurd is finished with the repairs. Once there, they shove out for the Ethos headquarters. There, they meet up with Billy, who confirms his contemporaries in the Ethos are taking care of Faye. Another Etone named Verlaine stops Billy as they're en route to meet with Faye. Verlaine says Billy should be aware of how his father is acting. He says that Billy's a fine enough Etone, but he should still keep aware. Through this, Billy Near shouts back that he is only related to his father by blood and nothing else. To the group, he explains that he wishes his father would think about how his actions, namely drinking and skipping out on Etone work, reflect on Billy. When they reach the Ethos doctors, they learn Faye is still unconscious because of physical exhaustion. Ellie feels bad for her responsibility in him being this way, but Citan helps cheer her up, reminding her that she helped save him from Ramses' onslaught. Some time passes, and the doctors clear him to be taken back to the Eat Yourselves hospital lane so we can continue resting. They ask the doctor where they can find Billy to give him their thanks, and the doctor replies that he headed out to the local orphanage as he was worried about some of the children there. The group heads over to the orphanage and find Billy, and they learn that Billy is the one who owns the orphanage, as he says he and his sister haven't had parents since they were infants, so he wanted to be that guiding force for other children who were in his shoes. Just then, Sigurd appears in the orphanage, telling Bart that a ship has been spotted in the radar to the south, to which the group questions if it was Gebler again. Just then, Jesse appears as well, and questions Sigurd if he knows him. Sidon affirms this, explaining to Sigurd, and revealing to everyone else, that Jesse does know Sigurd, as he too was a member of the Elements. He was the Earth element during his time in Solaris, and the leader of them, as Dominia is for the new age of Elements. Billy then recognizes Sigurd, and asks him why he has an eye patch now. It is then revealed that Sigurd rented a room out of Jesse's house when they were in the Elements in Solaris, and a sort of rivalry banter between Bart and Billy ensues, as Jesse offers himself aboard the ship to check out their bar. The group separates, Billy choosing not to go anywhere with Jesse, so Ellie, Sigurd, Sidon, Bart, and Rico head back to the Yggdrasil alongside Jesse. After the three reconvene, the group heads back up to the orphanage to speak with Billy. Along the way, there's an older man who approaches the orphanages, named Isaac Stone. He is a bishop for the Ethos, and has been like a father figure to Billy, and helped him during his time as an Atone. Bishop Stone asks Billy with investigating a long-since missing Ethos transport ship, as there is no human reply from the communications. He suggests it could have been Reaper presences aboard the ship. Bart wonders if the ship is the same one that Sigurd was talking about on the radar, and suggests they help out in the investigation since he helped him out with Faye. Billy is hesitant to involve others in his mission, but Bishop Stone accepts for him and insists they work together to investigate the ship. The group returns to Jesse, Sidon, and Sigurd in the bar, where it is revealed Sigurd has gotten wasted. This infuriates Billy. He scolds his father since he knows that Sigurd doesn't drink, and Jesse changes the subject by saying Billy should stop being an Etone. This obviously goes over well, and Billy tells him he wants nothing to do with him, and wishes he'd get out of his life. Jesse says he has no idea what the Ethos is capable of, and that Raquel, Billy's mother, died in vain. Billy barks back not to say her name since he doesn't love anyone. Jesse leaves with the final word: quit your job. From this point on, Billy becomes our next party member. He wields guns to fight and is generally pretty frail in battle. After this, Ellie asks Billy on why he decided to become an Etone. What really makes him tick? Well, anyway, Billy, I'd like to know why you became an Etone. I'm not interested. I see. Etones help out strangers, so I suppose that would make you curious. No, I don't mean that. I'm curious about your own intentions. Personally. I don't know, I just didn't expect you to be an Etone at all. I see. Well, since our job is rather unusual, I'll tell you about that too as I explain. How old was I? I don't remember, maybe 8 or 9. About then, Dad taught me how to use a gun. One day, he disappeared. He just ran out on us. Never came back. Even so, I stayed in his room alone often. Dad's gun, Dad's smell, those things were all I had to remind me of him, but that happiness didn't last long. When I was 12, my house was attacked by Reapers, and Mom was killed. They were looking for Dad, but Mom wouldn't talk. I can still hear it. The sound of the bullets slowly firing 3 times. I remember the sound of the empty shells striking the floor. After that, the Reapers screamed, and I heard someone fall. Bishop Stone was the one who helped us then. Meeting him changed my life from then on. Hey, wait a sec. Do Reapers talk? Yes, they're not just monsters. Some of them are more intelligent than humans. Primera and I hid in the shadows escaping death, but she hasn't spoken a word since. Like a godsend, kind, strong Bishop Stone gave me an example to follow. I wanted to help save someone in need like he saved us. I didn't want there to be more children like Primera. So I started training at the Ethos to become like Bishop Stone. I left Prim in the care of the Ethos and entered the monastery. Many years passed. I finished training at the monastery and became an Etone. I returned home to the orphanage. And he had unexpectedly come back, but he was different. Some terrible accident changed him. Not only his looks, but his character and manner completely changed too. I remember him as a quiet man, but more than that, I thought maybe I really didn't remember him. That's why I can never think of him as a father. But Prim needed a father, and she's become attached to him. Deep in my heart, I too thought I wanted a father, but even now I just can't believe he's my real father. This is gonna sound pathetic, but I almost went so far as to sell my body to support Prim, since we only had each other for so long. Despite that, Prim prefers the father she never knew, the one who suddenly appeared out of nowhere. They then make it out to the ship, walking into a darkened room. Citan makes note of a foul odor emanating from the depths of the ship, and Billy explains that it's the stench of the Vels. I want to make a quick distinction. Reapers and Vels are interchangeable. If you hear something describing a Reaper, it's another name for the Vels. Speaking of such, the group encounter a large Reaper after climbing down a hatch. They subdue and finally kill it. Before it dies, it calls out for its buddy, who they encounter as a gigantic Vels, something too powerful for them to handle. Billy reveals he has summoned his gear, Renmazu, with help from the children from the orphanage. It arrives just in time with the Yggdrasil to fend off Buddy. The group celebrates their victory, and Billy explains the Etone are merely serving their divine mission, and the next step will be to report the success of the mission to Bishop Stone. Bart and crew offer to bring Billy back as they have the Yggdrasil nearby, to which Billy happily agrees, desiring to thank them back at the Ethos HQ. Returning to the HQ, the group find a scene of the 3 Etones dead on the floor, with multiple bullet wounds in its chest. An Etone in the distance is heard groaning, and his last words explain he heard gunshots, and he went to investigate until he got shot himself. Billy discovers the shell casings that were spent before belonged to his father's gun. The group continues on, and they find a strange clawed creature killing another Etone, wondering about the other survivors. They manage to subdue it, but reason they need to hurry to go deeper inside. There, they find a Pontiff, the leader of the Ethos, as he's being killed by 3 assassins. The group is too late to save the Pontiff, but manage to stop the assassins. "Are you alright? Please answer me!"
"I don't know anything. I can't talk any more than this."
"Hey you, keep up with us. We're on your side."
That got to contact that.
Shavat? You're from Shavat? This is a real bad wound. Let us contact the Yggdrasil to come and help us. Billy and Rico continue on as the rest escort the survivor back to the ship. Deeper below, they find a giant computer complex which houses the Ethos' databank. It's here we learn some vital information. This databank contains all the research info concerning the Ethos. From the past to the present. Everything. This facility is strictly off limits to us. Only the Bishop class can enter this area. Yeah, but even then, this place is damn well equipped. Look at it. I say, a facility of this magnitude would be even hard to find in Solaris. Why would the Ethos have such a setup? Wait a minute. This is Solaris' equipment. So, Solaris? Don't act so surprised. No matter how vast the world is, such advanced equipment can only come from Solaris. The Ethos has been assaulted by someone. And in the basement, we find a Solarian facility. The plot thickens. What's going on here? What is this place? Hey, Billy, you know anything about this? Don't ask me. How would I know? This is my first time in here. Let's investigate. Citan, what's that being displayed here? Looks like some transmission record from somewhere. We might be able to find some clues here. Wait one moment. Alright, now I'm able to transmit it to the main displays. Ignis conflict status. 37th Armed
Port number
Supplement upgrading off gear, transferring all
D2
battle
to
data. D3. Also transferring to Solaris all data concerning the A-class battlers' health conditions and estimated adaptation rates for Type Y demi-human deployment. To maintain peace left gears at level D2. Current balance 4 to 6. A report by Bishop Shakan of the Ignis Diocese. Due to the intervention of an uncertain factory, correction is needed. Progress needed. What the heck is this? Why is the Ethos looking into this kind of stuff? On top of that Shakan's a bishop? Wasn't he excommunicated from the Ethos 17 years ago? That can't be the case if he's been sending in regular reports. Look here, the destinations of all the resources collected by the Ethos through trade in each area. All the resources are being sent to the Solaris homeland. But why would the Ethos be sending supplies to Solaris? I don't know. This is in the Solarian language, but it's been encoded. Hold on, what is this? Come on, hurry up. Hold on, it's hard to translate this stuff. Lambs, Great War, Collapse, Re-education, Post-war rehab plan, based on schedule for building gate foundations, Lambs, 0204 to Ignis, 05 to 08 Aquavi, 11 to 16 uniformly distributed, put into practice, Ethos established as an organization, supervision by elders, conference, supervision by the Gazel? The Ethos is... Huh? It's all front. The Ethos is really a subsidiary organization of Solaris. So, what does this all mean? In short, it's like this. 500 years ago, there was a great war that occurred between Solaris and the Land Dwellers. It's not clear what the outcome was, but after the war, Solaris feared another Land Dweller revolt, so Solaris built a gate, or a barrier that separates Solaris' land from the rest of the world. The Land Dwellers who lived within this gate were made to dwell as separate races, carry out actual supervision. Solaris established the Ethos, so the Ethos is actually controlled by the Gazel Ministry, or Solaris' highest governmental body. So yes, the Ethos really is a front, or a subsidiary organization working for Solaris. Excavation findings, goods and natural resources from the surface, they're all transported to Solaris by the Ethos. This also includes the human resources, or people used for manual labor and so on. Basically, this here is the window between the planet's surface and Solaris up there in the skies above. According to these records, there's been an enormous amount of goods and people transferred to Solaris. So, the Ethos has been manipulating us, huh? Anything else? The rest is mainly about population distribution and excavation records. The amount of detailed info about races and their biological data kind of concerns me, though. Here's a relatively recent record. It also indicates that there has been a large amount of people sent to Solaris. The majority of them were people who had come from the Ethos seeking help or spiritual salvation. This can't be. So what happened to all those people you sent coming in here for help? They become Etones, like me. Surely not all of them. What happened to the ones that didn't become Etones? Well, it's all becoming clear then. How about it, Ellie? There are facilities in Solaris for accommodating surface dwellers. I know. The third-class citizen level, Earth dwellers of various races are regularly sent there as manual labor. So, this is the source of their labor supply. But that's impossible! How could that be? Even if that was the case, why? Who would kill all those Ethos people? And why? This could be your answer. What? The 44th Salvage Plan. 44th Salvage Plan? Isn't that what the captain of the Thames was talking about? This is the only plan that is not linked to Solaris. It must have been initiated by the Ethos itself as a completely independent project. Allow me to display the data. Completed an investigation of the Zeboim city, which sank to the bottom of the sea approximately 4,000 years ago. After over 100 test digs, the city center has been ascertained. Excavation planned to begin. So, from this, it appears that under Aquavie lies an ultra-ancient civilization. They've been doing a huge number of tests and obtained a vast quantity of resources from the ruins. Biological weapons, reactive weapons. My assessment of the circumstances is that the Ethos is attempting to break away from Solaris, and once freed from its master, it's likely to attempt world domination on its own. Attempt a breakaway, and attempt world domination? That's rather ambitious. Yes, but the real intentions of the Ethos are quite obvious. The fact that they are not reporting the results, let alone the site's very existence, gives it away. The Ethos is planning to revolt by monopolizing this ultra-advanced civilization's resources. Actually, such rebellions have become quite common. So, do you think Solaris is responsible for this attack on the Ethos? Yeah, that's probably it. Shall we move along? There could be more to find yet. The Ethos. My Ethos. My faith. And, on this revelation, I think this is a good point to be ending it here. We've gone over a lot of information in this video, and I want to let this gestate for some time. We're nearing the end of the first disc of the story, and coming to light with a lot of new facts about the world. Next time, we'll see the ramifications of this information on Billy as he questions his faith, and as a long-standing place as an Atone. And hopefully we'll see Faye recover from his condition, and learn more about this mysterious Zeboim civilization. If you like this video, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comment section down below, and subscribe if you want to see more. If you like content like this, I have other series on my channel that cover similar topics, such as the Somnium Files and its related ARG, Lemnis Gate, or the ARG for its sequel, the Somnium Files The Nirvana Initiative, titled Hidden Bats, or even the first part of the story for Nier Reincarnation, the new-ish mobile game that is canon to the Nier story. With that, head out. Check you guys next time.